Paying attention to my folks. Test, test. Hey, Karen.
Hey Mike, how you doing?
Good, good. Hope you weren't waiting too long. I had my head in the
I
work
am
here. How,
having trouble hearing you. What's going on?
oh, let's see.
Let me, uh,
Test, test.
I'm gonna see if it's my speaker if I turned it down for some reason.
Test, test, test.
No, I'm gonna unplug my laptop from my monitor. Here if I turn it, and so I'll freeze for a minute, but then I'll be back.
Okay.
Also, I'm not sure why I had turned my video off. Can you say something now?
Yes, can you hear me?
I hear you so well now. Good to see you.
Good
I
to see
need to
you.
do I need to do something. There's something with that connection. We were, as you know, out of our law library space for a few weeks, and so I was just hooked up to a different docking station, and I don't know what changed on my settings, but something went funky. So anyhow,
I don't like to I don't like to be too mobile
I
anymore.
know,
And with all the setup and the separate screens and I can never, and I'm just not that kind of technical person, you know.
right? Yep,
My
I know.
daughter in broadcasting, which is sports broadcasting, which is live and it's all about cables and hookups. I mean, her job stresses me out more than it does her. Just thinking about,
I know. So many ways it could
yeah,
go wrong, and it can
yeah,
fail so spectacularly.
yes, yes. You know, you're always on, and it's a matter of, it's highly technical.
Yeah.
It's not just it's not just the software. It's what plugs into what, and
Yeah. So is she a like a sports journalist, or does she work on the kind of production side or
she's on the production side. I couldn't even tell you what the nature of her work is. It is interesting. She works for it's actually they're owned by an Australian company headquartered um in Dallas, I believe. But they set up the she used to work for the Timberwolves, and
okay. Yep.
so she used to be right downtown Minneapolis, but
Hmm.
now she works for a consulting group that builds these setups for the major stadiums. So she's been everywhere.
Wow. Wow.
She's worked
Hmm.
at all the major stadiums, and it's funny because I don't think she's a huge sportsman. I mean, she
Ah,
played. Yeah,
his job is lost on
I
her.
know,
All these young folks would be so excited to.
I know, I know.
Yeah, I was talking with an old friend over the holidays, and his daughter got a job working for the National Basketball Association, and she loves sports. Um, she went to the University of Michigan and was affiliated as some sort of manager with the women's basketball team. And so she's all in, but she's generating content for their social media. And she says to her father, "Oh my God, who cares that 50 years ago today in the NBA this happened?" She's like,
Yeah,
all the social media is geared to like older folks who are nostalgic. And she's like, that's not interesting.
yeah.
What's happening today is what's interesting.
Might be,
So
might be.
very much a young person's approach to to generating content.
Yeah,
Who wants to
yeah,
dwell in the past? Let's just see what's
yeah.
going on.
Oh, I know.
Uh,
But I mean, I've never been a huge sports fan myself. You know, when my kids were young and they played sports, that was a little different. But I don't have the same sensibility of or sense of history or
Right.
urgency. You know,
Well,
it's
I sort of, I grew up in a household where we watched sports a fair bit. My father and
you're
brothers.
a fan of collegiate sports too, right? You're like
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
so I have season tickets to Gopher women's basketball, and
yeah.
I grew up watching a fair amount of basketball and football. And so if I walk by a screen where a game is on, I'm all into it, every play, and I walk away, I retain nothing. I can't tell you who was playing. My son or my husband will say, "Yeah, they won the World Series last year." And I'll be like, "Huh, I didn't know that." And they'd say, "No, you
Yeah.
watched every game with us." Yeah, I was all in. And then I'm done. So who knows?
I blame my disinterest on uh, the Packers from the 70s. As I was growing up, they were a horrible team. And,
Yeah.
my family would rally around, just watching my uncles and my grandfather and all of these
Mhm.
men fall asleep in armchairs around the television on
Right.
Sundays. This is so horrible. I
I
hate
know,
this.
I know. When I watch, I think this is a true waste of time.
Yeah.
Except, I don't know. I knit. This is how I justify it.
Oh, do you?
I'll
Yes,
knit through
yes.
all
You have
kinds
to
of
be.
sports events to say I'm doing something. I'm not just sitting there.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I didn't know you were a knitter. That I learned something.
oh, yeah. I can't believe you didn't know that. That's usually
I
one of the
didn't.
first things I tell people.
Yeah, you probably caught him. Yeah. Speaking of losing one's mind, I'm sure you told me.
Well, I do fit the librarian stereotype in that I knit and I love to read, but I don't have any cats.
You did.
So I'm going way from the stereotype
Yeah,
there.
yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, breaking the mold there, Karen.
That's right. Uh,
We're at the top of the hour. And we are on live on YouTube. Um,
wonderful.
Thanks for joining, Karen. I'm Mike with Great Paper Legal. We meet at this time every Friday morning to discuss the most interesting legal research question of the week. I'm with Karen Westwood. Hi, Karen.
Hey, Mike.
Where are you coming from,
Oh,
Karen?
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
just have not had my full cup of coffee yet. Karen Westwood. I'm director of the Hennepin County Law Library here in Minneapolis.
Welcome. Karen, did you have a most interesting legal research question of the week?
Well, I got to thinking about finding foreign law.
Oh,
This was actually a personal question of mine, which wasn't particular to a specific country or question, but I was thinking about how challenging it can be to find foreign law, and I was remembering particularly in the past how difficult that was, and so I was just generally wondering, does India, as a former colony, use a system of common law, or how is their legal system set up? And I thought, where do you go anymore? There used to be some guide. I can't remember the name of it. I think the last name started with H. It wasn't Hendricks, but it was someone's guide to foreign law, and it gave you libraries that subscribed to it. It would give you just a little like nutshell overview of each country. But
yes.
now, if you go to, do you remember what that one was called? It wasn't
There,
Benson. It was some guy's name.
I
Hewitt.
don't
Oh,
know that one. There is the Westlaw used to have laws of the world. I don't remember I'm
oh,
blanking. And it was similar though, it was overviews of, copyright
right.
law in
Oh,
India
okay. So
or
it's actually the overview of the law.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yep,
What
yep.
was it? Throughout the world. Yeah, it's um
Uh, yep.
and I just did just coincidentally, but I believe these cover a number of different topic areas,
Mhm.
international
Sure.
materials, yeah, multinational treatises. So, um,
So I did the old librarian trick of searching, just doing a Google search for foreign law LibGuides.
yeah,
So you're familiar with LibGuides? This research,
yeah, oh
it's
yeah,
a
yeah, sure,
product, a LibGuide. It's a kind of research guide. And so I looked, and Law Library of Congress now has a very nice listing of, it's a LibGuide that explains, what foreign law is and all of this. And then, you can scroll through your countries, and, so I clicked on India, and there's links. So this is a listing of, like, publicly available on the internet information, but links
yeah,
to the Constitution, the statutes, the court system. And so you can get a really nice overview of the legal systems of all these countries. And don't you agree, Mike, that you have to have that kind of base knowledge before you can really understand what you're finding, even in something here like on Westlaw?
absolutely. I saw a demonstration recording with the of VLEX and Vincent AI, and sort of prepping for next week's CLE.
Yes,
And
thank you.
it is, so cool. I mean, it works really well. There's all of the Vincent is VLEX's AI tool. VLEX was acquired by, or I guess it was the other way around. VLEX, I think, acquired Fastcase, so it's now VLEX. And I believe that all of that information is becoming available to bar associations as well. So all the bar association customers, all of us who have access to Fastcase through the bar association membership, I believe will be getting access to all of that
To,
stuff,
to
which I
that
think is
foreign law?
to the foreign law. Yeah, they've
Wow.
got coverage of everything.
Yeah,
It seems nobody's got everything, but a lot. It's
right.
certainly has India coverage in India.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but as always, it was like, what am I looking for? What does it mean that I'm searching a case
Right,
in if it's not a common law jurisdiction? Yeah,
right.
it's tough to,
And just those basic things. If I find a case from this level of court, what is that court? And
yeah,
where
yeah,
is it in the hierarchy of decision making? So yeah, I just got to kind of, thinking about how onerous that used to be and how difficult it still is, especially when you locate uh, foreign law in the country of origin. It most often is in the language of origin, and you run into all
right, right.
the translation issues as well. But at least you have a place to start, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great resource. We'll plug that into the notes. It always been a challenge to find those. When I worked at Thompson, it was fun but it was always pretty shallow. I mean, but when like Westlaw China, it's like, well, what does that?
Right.
What is the law in China? What
Yeah.
does that even mean? What are those regulations? And for most of that, I just rely on the summary from one of the large law firms. If I'm ever
Yep.
looking into that issue, I'm looking to local counsel, or I'm looking to somebody who's got an office there that's written up a summary on their blog, or on the website for that law firm. But
Right. Yeah, I know. And uh there was a source, we I think we still have it here, that's something about, like, contract interpretation throughout the world, or yeah, maybe it was either contracts or something to do with, like, distributorships or something, where it's kind of question that comes up quite often, and people don't have to have a super deep understanding of all things
yeah,
legal. They just need to know how to get that deal done with whatever foreign entity they're working with. Um, and I found that quite encouraging, because I'm a kind of personality who thinks you can't make a movement until you have a complete understanding of everything. And I thought, or you figure out what applies in this circumstance, and and you roll the
Yeah.
dice and you go with it. And
So figure it out from there. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's good
I
enough.
mean,
Yeah,
I think we underestimate too just how, oh gosh, I don't even know how to quite explain it, but um, you know, enculturated the law is. There are all kinds of assumptions built in not only to the
right.
practice of law, but how we operate as
Yeah,
entities in the world, right?
yep,
How we do business and the things that are going to trigger scrutiny in one jurisdiction have nothing to do with regulation
yep,
or the regulatory scheme. It has to do with the culture and local expectations. It's just
right.
and that's even true, I think, within our own country. What happens in Louisiana is not the same thing that happens in California, Minnesota, Texas, wherever.
Right, right. Along with the letter of the laws are all those, like you say, cultural practices and traditional ways of
Yeah.
doing business that
Yeah.
trigger or don't trigger response depending on where you are. Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked many, many times about the uh, State Bar Association's community platform, which is the
Right.
first, one of the values of these local, hyper local communities is
Mhm.
online forums is just the ability to say what happens
Right.
in this jurisdiction. And
Right. We even see that county to county. What is the, I don't know,
yeah,
the
yeah,
recording office require in Carlton County? It might be different from Ramsey or Hennepin. So yeah. Anyhow, I'm not sure exactly why I got to thinking about foreign law here at the Hennepin County Law Library. We don't get a lot of those questions, which makes a question more difficult, doesn't it? When you don't get
yeah,
something much, then you're really going back in your mind trying to remember. But that's where the old Google search, including either Research Guide or LiveGuide, helps me out. What does Georgetown
yeah,
say about researching this issue?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Or Harvard or whoever it is? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
it's always my first use of ChatGPT was international uh,
really?
resource. Yes, and I think it was even before I was aware of hallucinations. I mean, I knew sort of basically what the tool was doing, and it was a Singapore issue. It was a Singapore question, and it's a common law jurisdiction, I believe. And the question had to do with the interpretation of a statute. Who was a buyer for purposes of one of the commercial statutes? And I said, well, I don't have access to any of that information. That was something that I put outside the project. I said, I can do the domestic portion of this, but you really
Yeah.
need to deal with local counsel on this other one. I'm
Right.
obviously not permitted to practice in Singapore.
Right.
And
Well,
you know,
that's
so
not so obvious, Mike. You're an interesting guy.
I did the work, and then I'm like, yeah, why don't I throw the question into Chat GPT and see what happens? And I'm like, holy cow, it gave me a list of cases. Could have been totally hallucinated. I have no idea. I had no way to. Before I went back and looked at my email. I said, yes, I have no way of confirming that any of this is true. These could
Right.
be, I said, I was alert enough at the time, very, very early on, to say, I don't know what this is.
Right.
But isn't this, and the conversation with the client was, this technology is pretty weird and amazing. And,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
but it gave me full citations, gave me a little blurb about what the case had to say about
Yeah.
it. I said, and sort of offered it up in that manner to say, maybe these are our
Sure.
results for,
Yeah. And send it to the local council to, you know,
yeah,
see if it's a good
investigate.
starting point. So yeah. Yeah,
But
that's
even
great.
me, I'm in the Minneapolis, South Minneapolis. My office is here. The vast majority of work I do is domestic for sure, but it's not uncommon to bump up against an international research issue for anybody,
Oh,
even for me.
yeah, absolutely. And when you think about like how much of commerce has globalized now, and the
Yeah,
pandemic really brought home how interconnected we are worldwide you know, with products, with commerce.
yeah, Yeah.
You know, it seems like a lot of people would be dealing with um, directly with folks in other jurisdictions trying to get that to work.
I wonder if VLEX seems to be pretty far ahead on the way that they've deployed Vincent AI as well. I
Yeah.
wonder if I can grab the screenshot. I'm not done with this presentation yet, but I think I have. So yeah, here it is. Maybe I'll expand this a little
Is
bit.
that for our CLE next week?
It is, yeah. This is the draft
Great, y'all. We're getting a preview of Mike's
preview for next week.
highly anticipated CLE.
Um, but they've got all of this content, which I think
Mhm.
puts them in an interesting competitive advantage. I don't know. I mean, as I say, I'm not in UK, Canada. I'm not even doing Canadian research hardly ever.
Right,
I have Canadian clients, and I'm hardly ever doing
right.
Canadian research, but they've got all of this content, which is just amazing. And I wonder if this they have a competitive advantage. They've got more content than any of the other major publishers. I don't know if that means that I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means if they're ahead of the game or the AI. I feel the user interface is a lot smarter than it is on Westlaw. And I haven't seen the Lexis Plus
Oh,
AI,
okay. Yep. Can
but
you read what that question is? It's quite small on
oh
our
yeah, sorry. So
screens here.
what are this jurisdiction's laws and rules on establishing and operating franchises? Is the
Oh,
question.
sure. Classic
And
question. Yep.
classic question. So you've got in the left column, you've got the history here indicating which jurisdiction you're searching, UK, and then the
Got it.
answer is generated right below. And this is basic RAG. This is retrieval augmented generation. You get the results, the most recent results.
Yep.
Richard said you get the source material appearing
Right.
right, along with the section of the text that is relevant to your question. So you can see that it's not being hallucinated, but you do have the generated answer right below. So that setup, I think,
Right.
is super is very, very nice. The way that it works, with the traditional AI chatbot is that you pose the question, you wait a little bit, you get the answer with a footnoted, and you have to you're several clicks away to getting
Sure.
the information you need.
Right.
We took a look at that last time we chatted with the insurance question. Worked great,
Yep.
and but the flow was just a little bit more, a little bit more friction there, few more clicks than
Yeah.
you see
It is
something
nice
like
to see
this.
them side by side like that. And that's
Yeah,
interesting because I always think of Westlaw as being effective with that. When you run a search and you pull up a result, then they have that panel on the right that is kind of promoting additional results that might
content.
be of
Yes, yes.
interest. And so like there's that history on Westlaw of that kind of format. But
Yeah, yeah, that's
now
right. That's right.
VLEX is doing it this, or Vincent is doing it in a similar way here. And I think our minds are, it's just to your point about flow, it's easier to look at something right next to it rather than it's like the similar to in print, how footnotes were easier to deal with than endnotes at the end of chapters, just
Yes.
like proximity so you can look.
Yeah, right, 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 right. That's a perfect example. I love that. It's uh so the old school same principles what's old is new is get new again.
Right. And just I used to think it indicated that we're lazy, that, it's not that it's not a cognitive challenge to look to an end note and flip back and forth. It's just it's a hassle and we do take, we're like water, right? We take the
Yeah,
path of least resistance and
yeah.
yeah,
Well, and you add that up over the course of an hour and a day and a
yes.
work week,
Right.
it adds up. And it impacts our well-being, right? I mean,
Yeah.
those little
Yeah.
flow breakers, right? That little it requires quite a bit of perseverance
Um,
and stick-to-itiveness to stay on that kind of project and
Yeah.
eliminating those little frustrations.
It makes me think of the hyperlinks within a text where you can like hover over the citation and gives you
Yeah.
just like the citation or a little bit more. That's super convenient, but it's highly irritating if your mouse drifts over something as you're reading and you get these
Yes.
pop-up windows and you're like, oh, that's not what I want. And
Yeah. Yeah.
those little things, that's all those user experience folks make entire careers out of trying to make things
Yes.
easier for the reader, right? Or the user.
I think they just gonna grab a citation here because I've seen that in maybe it was it's mid page. I was thinking you mentioned it. I think there was a good
Yeah, some of these sources you've been using, Mike, are being highlighted now by that ABA little tech. I'll just stop talking. I can't remember what it was.
no.
Do you remember what the ABA ran some kind of little contest about new products or something? And I thought MidPage was on there, and
Oh, was it? I'll have to take a look.
I can't remember what all was there, but I was like, the reason I recognized some of these products was because you've been experimenting with them. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I know that because Mike's been using that. Sure, here's one.
Yeah, it does frustrate me. These are kind of interesting features that have been added here.
Uh-huh.
One thing MidPage did, and I haven't been able to get this to work. I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but it's got this feature now that inserts the parenthetical. It uses the AI to draft
Oh,
the reason you're citing this. So, it would say citing Liberty Lobby for purposes of blah
right.
blah. So it gives you a little generated piece of text to insert into the parenthetical for your
Sure.
site, which I think is such a cool little. I
Oh,
mean
yeah.
that's a feature for when Westlaw I would use all the time because I that's the kind of thing that ends up in my brief, and even if it's not perfect, it saves me a load of time.
Well, when you
One of
think
the
of how much time it takes to summarize
Yeah,
that part of the holding into just part of a sentence, yeah, you can spend a lot of time.
but if you're like me, you read with your mouse,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Uh-huh.
these things pop in. That's especially frustrating on Westlaw. I don't know why I don't learn. Yeah, I can't unlearn it. But if I'm reading, I'm like, oh, here's the section I care about. Let me just take a closer look at that, and then it pops up my menu options here, which is what I
Right.
want, which is what it should do.
Right.
Though I sort of think, I prefer to have it as a right click, maybe. I don't know.
Sure. Yep.
These are all tools that I use,
Yep.
copy with reference, especially that, having the blue book,
Yes. Yep.
whichever citation format we care about, very, very
Right.
helpful. So
Yep.
I do want that. I don't annotate a lot of documents.
No.
What's this?
See multiple results for this citation. Oh, is it so you can see the US, the official US Supreme Court version plus the lawyer's edition? Is that what
We
it
see
is?
we've got this is where the key site
Parallel
flag
sites.
go.
Yeah. Oh, but they're
And so we've got the Supreme Court and the lawyer's edition.
I see. Yeah, the other citations have a flag.
What am I looking at here? You're my key site expert, Karen.
Yeah, I don't know what we're looking at. Why? And neither does Westlaw, which is why it's a question mark. Like, we
Gosh,
don't know.
I've never seen that. That is super interesting. It's because is this like a table case? The petitions
Yeah,
were
the
denied on
petitions were
December 11th.
denied. It must be. Yep.
Yeah, this is it was a petition for cert, maybe. That's maybe why.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's the first I've seen it. I'm not familiar with that. So it's giving me the
Well, and
what's
maybe these other cases were also in that on that page listed in the table of cases. When,
things I should get the same results. I do. Yeah, that's interesting. So and
huh,
that's what you would expect from a table case
yeah,
is to get a list of all the documents that are on that citation because that's what that does. And
right.
that's the first I've seen that. That's interesting. So a question mark key site
Question
flag,
mark is like the indicator. Huh.
indicator for a table case.
Yep.
Interesting. Wow, we're learning things.
I
Good.
know. We always do, Mike. Huh. That's great. So that was the research question I was thinking about. Did you have an interesting research query, or are you just spending all your extra time preparing for your upcoming CLE
I
presentation?
have been preparing. I mean, it's a technical area, so I want to make sure I'm up to speed. So I've been spending
So
some time
hard. Yeah,
making
yeah.
I you know it's funny how things sort of seep in and you think you know them. It really, and especially in an area like this that's just being talked about so frequently, and it's really in the
Yeah,
environment. I just want to make sure that I'm talking from a place of knowledge, not not assumptions,
that's
because it really.
right. Yep. And also it's sometimes hard to remember, like you've read something or heard something, because there's such a vast amount of information on this swimming around. And then I don't
Yeah,
remember, like, was that a joke I read and that's what I retained
that's
from
right.
it? Or was this like, you know,
Yeah.
there's more and less reputable information out there. So, yeah.
And this, especially with the work I've been doing in this space, I kind of have my own biases already built in from what's happening, and I'm sort of looking for, confirmation bias, probably, but for other people who have felt similar things, and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
a little additional
Well,
research.
but I think that's why it's going to be such a great presentation because you've been using it and gaining experience. So I don't know if it's bias or if it's experience, right?
Yeah, right,
That's
right, right. Well, it's
influencing
both.
how you're thinking about this. Yeah. So we'll give you the credit for the
I did,
experience. Because I
did
think a
grab.
lot of attorneys and those of us in law libraries are reading a lot about it and learning about it, but aren't really implementing it in a very direct way. I do think AI is operating in all kinds of searches that we're doing that we may or may not actually recognize. Um, but we just want to hear from someone like you who's been out really kind of, test driving it to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I think in the research space, it's also interesting. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
the current um, incarnation of AI really is not built for, at least for search, not for retrieval. It's built for other stuff. So it's
right.
interesting to see that framed
Yeah,
for legal
yeah,
purpose.
yeah,
Um,
it really is.
the other thought I had this week was this is a nice report. I think the Thomson Reuters Institute. I don't know much about them. I don't know if you do. They published their report on the state of the U.S. legal market this week. Um, you know, and we've talked about this before, how all the vendors that we use in the industry are the people who were responsible for doing this independent research, which always
Right.
frustrates me because it's
Yeah,
like I think the work that Clio does, for example, super valuable. Unlike this report here is talking about Am Law 100 firms. That's not
yeah,
something that Clio cares about. I mean,
right,
they care about it, but their customers are not Am Law 100 firms.
right.
And so it's super interesting to get that data about realization rates, and just I think it's valuable work that they do each time, but they're not a disinterested party, right?
Well,
It's
exactly. Yep.
and I think it's valuable information, but I don't know if I was just thinking this week, what do we look to? Altman Weil, is there an industry party that we can look to as a trustworthy source? I mean, this I think is legitimate research here. I
Oh,
think
for
that
sure. But you always have to. I remember, many, many years ago, I have a brother-in-law who's a chemist, and he said, first thing he looks at on every research,
yeah,
project or paper is who funded it. He said, I don't
yeah,
care who did it. I don't look at the methodology. The first thing I want to know is who funded it. And then I'll look at the authors. Then I'll look at the methodology. But you have to know who's underwriting it, just so you
yeah,
know. It can still be very good, but you have to understand that. But to your question, the ABA runs surveys and reports. Do they tend not to be like as timely as Altman Weil? And Altman Weil is so expensive to buy
yeah.
their reports. We don't get any of those in the library.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, that was
Mm.
what I was going to. I was going to ask you that if those were.
Yeah, no, not anymore. I think in the past they used to selectively, like once every 5 years or something, spring, for a report, but it's just too much. I know the Law Library Association, they run reports on sort of the state of the profession. So they survey their members, and they get, very useful data, but it's all voluntary. Well, I guess all surveys are kind of
Yeah,
voluntary participation, and they tend to then roll out, a little bit later than some of these kinds of reports that are popping up right away, like this one. And I think Bloomberg reports, doesn't Bloomberg do reports on states of the profession and,
they do. I think we looked at it
for,
last time we talked about this topic. This is one of our favorites. I think it's the
Mhm.
frustration over the reliability of these. But Bloomberg, I think, recently did one too that was state of the profession type
Yeah.
of.
And it's great to look
This
and
is
see. I mean, there are a lot of perceptions, from the research perspective. There's this perception that you don't need a researcher or a librarian, once you have AI. And,
yeah.
we in the profession are dubious about that. We might have to modify
We are
how we
also
assist attorneys.
self-interested. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, for sure.
This report was interesting. I haven't done a super deep dive into it. I think it's not sure I quite followed the Pan Am analogy at the top. Sort of the doom and gloom. So the report starts with this story of what happened to Pan Am. In the mid '80s. They weren't able to turn the ship around to accommodate the new market, and obviously the statement from TRI here is, some of the AmLaw 100 firms are also going to need to right the ship
Oh, sure.
if they're going to, just like Pan Am, the AmLaw 100 can also suffer the same kind of fate
Sure.
if they don't, adjust to the market. And it is, I mean, it is interesting. I was looking for I think it was this one here. So, it's just huge rate increases,
Oh,
6%,
yeah.
well above well above inflation.
Yeah,
And so what they're seeing are situations where, their clients, corporate legal departments, are moving to mid-sized firms, and
sure.
uh, so the rates are rising, but you're also seeing lower realization rates
Yeah.
from these law firms. So it seems like a weird game where, yeah, we're going to raise the rates by a lot.
Yeah.
6% seems obscene
That
to me, but
seems
I don't know. It's not.
high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that's just my inexperience and naivete. I don't know, but it seems like an unusual game, knowing that we're going to have to write off more
Yep.
than we used to. So we're going to have to recover that with higher rates for the people who are able to pay us.
Yeah.
I don't know if that that is the game that's being played, but that's sort of what it looks like. And the legal departments are spreading the work around now a little bit more as a result of that as well. So taking the work to mid-sized law firms, and there's kind of a
Yeah.
nice scenario here where the authors here outline a situation where uh, they how the corporate legal department can save money by
Yeah.
spreading work around to
Yep.
a diversity of firms.
Yeah. I can see why they'd want to do that. I mean, I suppose in the past you think, well, I'll get a large firm, they can handle all our different kinds of needs, right? Contracting and litigation and this and that. But you might get a little better product from a mid-sized firm who specializes in whatever,
Yeah.
that area of law.
Yeah, and I meant to before we logged in to find out what is midsize.
Yeah.
That's it. The terms of revenue, I imagine more than it is headcount.
Yep.
It's funny,
Yeah, I
depending on
suppose.
who you
Yeah.
ask, but headcount was another interesting piece. Midsize, whereas the larger law firms are scaling back, mid-sized firms are increasing headcount.
Right.
The
Those large
Clio,
law firms, yeah, are scaling back, it seems. Yeah. Except the really huge ones. I mean, like so much in our society, it feels like there's this
yeah,
huge gap between enormous and small. In our own market in the Twin Cities, it seems like there are, some larger firms, and some mid-sized firms, but just a lot of solo practitioners and 2, 3 attorney firms. Yeah. And of course, our definition of mid-size is probably
totally different, right?
10,
But
10 to 20, 10 to 40 maybe or something, and that's not the national definition.
I know. At the Bar Association, Thomson Reuters is going to define it one way. At the Bar Association, we thought about defining it another way, but it's also personal to the firms. I think
Yes.
might have been the Mazer. We were sort of testing this as Mazer's a firm local here that we asked them. So are you mid-size, solo, small, or not solo? Obviously, it's a firm,
Yeah.
but like, oh no, we're a big firm.
Right.
They thought they
That's
were,
right.
and among their peers, that's absolutely
Right.
true. They've
Yeah.
got lots of office space and
Yep.
a large number of attorneys, and
Yep.
but elsewhere in the industry, we would certainly call that a small firm. Yeah. So
Right. Right. Yep. Yeah, it is. It's super interesting.
anyway, that was not so much a legal research piece, but brought me back around to that conversation of trusted resources and
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and as researchers, we always do want to find out what's important to our constituents, right? What are law firms looking at? Years ago, legal researchers, had a lot of discussions about getting into knowledge management and conflicts checking and some of these things that large firms were really concerned with, and where librarian or researcher skills could possibly be useful, in developing a database of what we used to call brief banks internal to firms, and and things like that. So we're always checking on what law firms are concerned about, and is there a way for the librarian profession to assist in helping that, and to understand how how attorneys think about research and what they want to be using. So it's always helpful.
I did slip in a slide on quoting one of those. Where did I drop it here? This one here. They were talking about the successful firms and how one of the elements that those firms would take on is this willingness to expand roles for non-lawyer professionals.
Right. Yep.
Push work down. We live in a very hierarchical profession.
Yeah. Right. And the way we talk about it like this, to push work down, really is I would think of it more as pushing work out, but I can see what they mean,
Right.
right? You're pushing it to a lower salaried employee.
Sharing your burden among experienced peers or something. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
right, right.
Pushing work down is, part
Yeah,
of the problem here, I would imagine. Because if you're going to take advantage of those folks, I don't know. There was this
yeah.
other one. Well, I don't want to give away the whole story here, but I thought this was funny from West Virginia. Judges should think of AI as a law clerk.
Oh, sure.
And the point here is that uh, that you can't replace your judgment with the judgment of the AI, which is kind of
Right,
duh,
right.
but
Yeah,
I don't think I would ever draft a sentence that puts a worker in, as a cog in the machine.
yeah,
To me,
exactly.
that I don't
Yeah.
know, that just struck me as kind of an odd. Maybe that's just me, but
No, I'm with
it's
you
one of
because it makes this assumption that law clerks aren't really exercising judgment, or it's giving AI a lot more credit for exercising
yeah.
judgment than it
I
probably
think former,
deserves.
but
You know,
uh,
poor law clerks, the much maligned law clerk, right?
I know. But like, geez, I don't know if other professions talk about their staff that way. As a nurse
Oh,
practitioner,
probably. Yeah.
I don't know. When I just started this survey, I started this last week. I got this set up, and that's what I'll be logging in on Friday mornings. And if it's quieter, or if none of our attorneys can join us, or our librarians can join us, I'll be plugging away at this rules survey. This is just something that we might use internally. I'm kind of hoping. I think it might be beneficial to folks more broadly, but this is a survey that considers, what kind of page numbering do you need to have in each
Yeah.
jurisdiction, what kind of fonts are permitted, margin rules, all of that. And we're going to summarize that in a just try to offer this. This has been published to the web, so it's available for
Oh,
anybody to update.
yep.
Uh, I don't know who's going to jump in here and do this kind of thing, but this is a tool too. I don't know if have you ever used Notion, Karen?
I have not. I was just wondering what you were using here.
We use this quite a bit. We've built like litigation dashboards in Notion, and it's kind of a very cool tool that it's a project manager. It creates a relational database, so
Oh,
I can attach this to different tables, and I've seen people build practice management platforms right in Notion. There's all kinds of stuff you can draft in here, but it's a very, very nice project management piece. And I've just created a page here where created a template here. This is the state, and I'll start right at the top with Alabama. Alabama.
oh, so is this a free source, Mike, or do you have to
This is
subscribe?
free. Yeah.
Oh,
There are paid versions.
of course. Yeah.
There are paid versions of this, but within this table, I've got, embedded other tables. So within each of these, I've got um, and I'm just going to plug away at this. I mean, with the page numbering rules at the trial court level, at the appellate court level, and the court of last resort. I think Alabama has 3. Not sure, but
And the
very
style,
easy.
okay, so those are the style elements. What was your other category?
So style elements for
Oh, I
each,
see. And then
because
sample
there are rules
documents.
for
Yeah, yeah.
each. It gets
I
even
see.
more weird, like, especially Illinois, for example. I think each district has its own style guides. They don't vary greatly from one to the next, but it's
Yeah, but
extreme.
uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so in your chart, do you have a column for the authority?
Yes. So,
Perfect.
and these
Because
typically
that's
change.
where you can go look at it, right? You can go
Yeah,
to this product, get the general rule, and then quick double check the authority, right? To see
yeah,
if
yep,
it's changed
exactly
the
right.
rule or statute. You must
Usually,
find most of this in court rules, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep. The search we do is typically something like I do a Boolean for this actually. We
Oh,
can we could throw this into one of the tools. We could do we could try a 50 state, we could try a jurisdictional survey, but usually because we need those individual rules, I do usually a title preliminary field search for rule,
mhm,
just so I'm getting the rule. And then it's
yeah.
pretty easy to run font or margin. Um,
And you
uh,
run it all as one search, font or margin, or I don't know,
yeah,
as a
it's
page
just
number or something. Yeah,
yeah, it's just to get to the general area
right. Because
of
usually
the
those are together within the rules.
yeah 1600. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
that seems
use
like a lot. Oh, but there you're in that typography.
Alabama has 15
Oh,
results.
I see. Oh, so yeah, I get it.
And then because did an initial review, I kind of know what the categories are. Now I just created those in here. Here, there may be others that I haven't thought of. I just
Sure.
sort of cherry picked a number of states, finding font size, front matter,
Yep.
page properties, no glossy paper, for example. You see that in various jurisdictions. And then, of
Yep.
course, there's e-filing requirements,
Yep. Yep.
which may require an additional couple of rows here. I didn't do,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yep.
in a place in the survey where I know what additional items might
Right.
be here, but just a little description of the rule, and then the a citation of the rule get entered there.
I wonder if this is interesting to me now. Are courts changing these rules? Because e-filing has become so much more prominent. I was just wondering if they were relaxing any of these other font and like color of the paper. Remember, it used to be
Yes.
your brief was blue and the response was red or something. There were these paper covers,
Yeah.
which of course made sense when you were managing so many paper filings, but that's got to be way down for courts these days.
Yeah.
There's an article.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. We'll see. It'd be interesting to follow up on that. There are color rules still in the
Sure.
and other paper property rules. That's why I included that. It
Yep.
is interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
they're e-filing rules, of course, in every jurisdiction. Now, I
Sure.
don't.
But those same typography and font and those kinds of rules must still be in effect. It's just you're filing it as an e-file, but you
Yeah.
still have a
Yeah.
page limit, you know. Huh.
Yeah, I think
Interesting.
the likely thing to be added to the rows are going to be like PDF properties, or I'm not sure kind of where that fits in, but what
Right.
the OCR and things like that.
Yep.
What the document
Yep.
the digital document properties
Yep.
need to be.
Yep.
So no pressure on this, which is kind of nice. We'll just plug away at this as we go
Yeah.
along. It's kind of a nice break on these Friday mornings to
Right.
uh, do a
Right.
little casual research and
Well, I'm quite interested in this Notion product. I'll take a look at it, Mike, because as you know, I'm the chair of this special interest section for government law libraries. Um,
oh yeah.
and so I've established a government law library funding task force because these law libraries are funded in different ways throughout the country and even slightly different ways from county to county. But we're starting with a 50 state survey of um, to find out what states have legislation that talks about how to fund law libraries.
Oh,
So
really? Interesting.
yeah, so it's both interesting and tedious,
Yeah. Well,
as
yeah,
these
that's
50 state surveys are.
yeah.
But we just have an Excel spreadsheet that a
Sure.
prior
Sure. Yeah.
iteration of this group had done an initial overview back in 2011. So we have some statutory citations to start with. But it's all right now in in an Excel spreadsheet. And I'm just wondering if it makes any sense to look at a product like this and
It might be
move it
the
over.
benefit, I think, is that these are relational tables, right? The other product is called Airtable, is the other one that I'm familiar with. That one's a table first kind of experience, I think, where
Uh-huh.
you whereas what I like about Notion is it's a lot easier on the eyes. It's a page first, so you create these, these pages, rather than
Yeah.
thinking about it necessarily table first. But the
Right.
nice thing about it is if you want the binding rules for the jurisdictions, you search the binding table. If you want the
Right.
front matter, whatever, you enable to use these one-to-many relationships in
Sure.
these tools. So
Yep.
I often start in an Excel spreadsheet or Google
Yep.
Sheets and
Yep.
build that way, but ultimately end up back here because it's kind of nice to have that functionality.
And then are you able to export that data from Excel, or are you doing some kind of copying, pasting the information that you want to retain in this product?
From Excel into, it's a good question. I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's got to be a way to import in
You
from.
would think, with this,
Yeah.
as with all these products, Mike, um, and is the big role of the key number system and what librarians do is trying to standardize the categories. So right now, this Excel table has just very minimal information. Does legislation establish a state law librarian? Does it mention county law library funding? And then a statutory citation, and then a notes field. And the notes field, of course,
Yes.
is full of all this thing. In New Jersey, these are
Yeah.
called vicinages, and it seems to establish a state law library, but it's part of the state library system or something. And so we have all these notes, and I was thinking we need to standardize some of these idiosyncrasies into more general concepts so we can compare the states to each other.
I wonder if the Sally tags include those already.
Oh,
Is another.
I doubt it, but do you think?
I don't know. I had some success with this LMSS research tool that's part of Sally. I dropped it into because it's AI enabled.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I had some good luck with it, just kind of messing around with it. And it's got an
Yeah.
API. I don't know if this is within the scope of your project, but give me a term. Give me one of those terms that's unique to New Jersey, for example.
Oh, well, vicinage, Vicinage.
Sorry,
I think Vicinage. Vicinage. Oh, N
vicinage.
as in Nancy.
I don't know what, I've never heard that term before.
Me neither. I'm like, what is this?
So it's looking for the Sally tags. It's using this. It's just a search tool that's looking for the Sally tags and giving us. So U.S.
Right.
courts. These aren't extremely high scores. Give me 75 U.S.
It
matter
seemed
in there.
unique to New Jersey.
Yeah.
So what is this telling me? That it's found that term in these places?
It's identifying so for example, the example I have for next week's presentation, giving away all of my.
I
I
know,
typed
Mike,
in
this is great.
again Diablo 4, which if you're a gamer is obvious to you, right? If you were alive last year and you were playing video games, you know what Diablo 4 is. If you're a lawyer, you might not.
Mm-hmm.
But it delivers me gaming law, right? It's just these random tag. It gives me the
Oh,
tag, the
I
Sally
see.
tag for
Yep.
gaming law and it's got the score here is high, 88, plus the
And that's
related.
so a perfect would be 1.00,
Yeah, which
right? So
one?
88 is quite high. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see once you get the oranges here that it is quite a bit more off
Getting
the
lower. Yep. Yep.
sport and entertainment. These are tags that I want. Uh, if this is part of my, and it's quite possible that you have, because that's a legal element. There's probably a tag that's right on point for whatever that is. I don't know if it can
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what is this? I have
Well,
to,
I think now I can't remember. It's like what New Jersey calls it's a group of district courts or ah I can't remember. I
uh,
just thought, oh, okay. But that's how I think how they distribute
well,
funding is by vicinage. So I think it's some like grouping of trial
inter-
courts.
interesting. I mean,
I
and
don't.
that,
Why
interesting,
would you
yeah.
call it that?
I'm just gonna look at the, so what is the top level? I wonder if in any chance it's right in here. Oops.
Oh, you have an extra I in there. No, yeah, right. Yep. Vicinage. Yeah.
Thought in this case it might be just
Yeah.
directly in there. Legal entity,
Could be.
entity groups,
Yeah. Huh.
maybe a
Yeah.
question
Is
for
it a
me.
location? Is it a, yeah. Is it a government body? I don't know. A judicial body? So this is the outline. Oh, it's the class hierarchy. I see. Yeah.
Yeah, these are all of the items. These are all the tags. You can kind of see where they sit within the.
Sure. And it's a hierarchy, but to your point, it's also relational. So it isn't just a hierarchy
Yeah,
of terms, right? Because like the key number system is more of a classic hierarchy.
right, right. I think the difference is between taxonomy and ontology, maybe.
Yeah, right. All right. We talked about that. We talked about that a year ago.
I
Year
know,
and a half.
I know. Wait, no,
We've been on this for a while, Mike. Or you have.
dissonant,
You've been instructing me on this for a while.
dissonant. That is such a good additional term that is now in my brain.
Yep.
That's a good one. I wonder what the
Well, maybe we'll do a little more vicinage research and post.
her vicinity. It's like a word that you make up
I
in
know. What if you type New Jersey vicinage and see if it says anything? How is that operating there?
the
One of those
vicinity.
old New England states, right?
Yeah, I understand why it is quite a bit more generic than yeah,
Right,
interesting.
right. Then Sally would be, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a term specific
Yeah,
to New
because
Jersey.
interesting.
Superior courts are grouped into 15 smaller vicinages.
Interesting.
What we would
Yeah.
call judicial districts, I suppose. Do you think?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
everybody has to be special, Mike. Have their own terms for things.
what's the term they use in prothotenary? Uh,
Yeah, U.S. district courts.
looking for a higher level.
Right.
If I have that as this is what we're after here, but
Yeah, that's federal. Huh.
like one of the things that's nice to have standardized here are thing, what's a superior district,
Right.
Supreme Court in New York is the trial court level and the appellate
Yeah.
division, so having those tags for that it's
Yes.
precisely what this is for, so
Yes.
we have the
Yep.
if we have the governmental body.
Yeah, judicial branch. Interesting.
But that's a really great question. That's something that maybe I'll investigate for next week is figuring
Yeah.
out how to
Let's
apply
bring this
these
to, yeah,
tags.
a
to the
surprise on us. Yeah.
to the survey. That's that could be beneficial if you're uh
Yeah.
maybe have to have Armin on next time. This is the
That's
kind of
his
thing I
thing.
get Armin
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I've been in GitHub. But I don't live there like he does. So
Yeah.
that's
Yes. And I am just a tourist driving by.
I feel like that many times.
Yeah.
Well, cool. What's coming up for you next week, Karen?
Well, what's coming up for me next week is this great CLE that's going to
Yes,
be
that's
offered
right.
by our Mike Carlson about
Yeah.
actually using AI and trying to understand its utility in legal research, which I just think a lot of lawyers want to know, right? So many lawyers do their own research and they want to know how, like, can they rely on it? Are they going to get good results? What level of scrutiny do they need to employ? So really looking forward to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
We are back
I'm
up
looking forward to
in,
it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, it's just going to be super. That's at 12:15 next Friday, the 19th of January. And, we were out of our space for a while because the county is replacing all the exterior windows in the government center, which,
Oh my
to my
gosh.
understanding, are original to when the building opened in the 1970s.
Oh,
So
really?
I'm excited to see if we notice a difference, like in like how weatherproof they are. We just moved back in this week into our space, and the view is great because the windows are super clear now, and they
Yeah.
haven't put the blinds back up. So I'm thankful for cloudy days because when the sun shines, we can't see our computers
Just
very well.
blasting
Yeah.
you.
Um, but so that's really nothing to do with legal research, but it's kind of fun. We spent about 3 weeks down on the Skyway level where we had quite a bit of traffic, quite a bit of directional questions where do I get to
Yeah.
court? What's
Yeah.
this? Because we
Yeah.
were right there. But I was pleasantly surprised at how many of our regulars came. We moved a couple of public terminals down, and they stopped by. People requested books, and most days we could come up and retrieve them, even though things were wrapped in poly sheeting, we could crawl under and get books. But on the days they actually removed the windows, we were not allowed in the
Yeah. Yeah.
vicinity
Yeah.
because those
Oh,
workers were harnessed and attached to weights because when they take the windows out, apparently there's some degree of
Gus.
outdraft,
Yeah. Yeah.
which made me sort of sick to my stomach to think about. So we stayed away
Oh,
for
God.
a few days. Yeah.
Like
But so
an
that's,
Alaska
my
flight. Yeah.
I know exactly. So my this coming week is just kind of getting resituated back in our space.
Yeah.
It's a
Good.
lot
Good.
of fun. Yeah.
I
But
love
what
that
about
space.
you?
It's a great space to work. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I like my
Yep.
office. It's,
Yep. It's a nice change of pace, and we're our big effort now is to see if we can get local newspapers delivered again.
really.
During COVID, it all just went to hell in a handbasket, and we could not get them to actually deliver them. And then they'd say, "Well, we'll put them in the mail. We'll credit your account." We'd say the thing is, people want to see the daily paper. So I don't know
Yes. Yes.
if we'll invest in that. I know a lot of people read papers online, but I just think it'd be kind of nice if you could come to the law library like you used to and be able to grab a physical paper and just enjoy it a
Yeah.
little bit.
I don't know if I'm so old school. I find I have, Star Tribune, New York Times on my phone.
Yeah.
And I do read those, but
Yep.
I don't know, it's a different experience. Not sure how to
Yeah.
explain, with a
Right.
physical.
Right.
It,
Yep.
you know, it's just,
No, I agree.
it is that's a legitimate research issue, just the physicality of being able to negotiate text with, fixing it in your hand and the way you scan the material and things like that. It's a
Yep.
I think as researchers we tend to think about data and information, especially in an electronic world, but ability to manipulate that page is not to be underestimated. I think it's
Right. Yeah, no,
different,
I think that's absolutely true. And
especially
sometimes,
with,
yeah,
was you say,
sometimes, yeah, go ahead.
well, especially with stuff that's for civic engagement, there's something that's supposed to keep you informed, that's daily, that's regular.
Yeah,
Um, we're talking about earlier those little itty bitty clicks and
right.
pop-ups that provide additional friction. I think that what you get from from the holding that text in your hand is also underappreciated sometimes.
Right. And I was going to say, and sometimes you're up and you're doing a bunch of research and you just want a 10-minute break and you've been online and it's just
Yeah.
nice to rest your eyes on a piece of paper instead of pulling up the newspaper on your phone and reading this tiny print. So that will be actually more of a challenge than one would think to see if we can get them to deliver it. We've made an initial call and they've said, yeah, you can subscribe, but we're just not sure we'll be able to get it to you. Okay. It's hard to miss our building, but
That's crazy. That's
I know,
crazy.
isn't it wild?
Newspaper. I mean, I guess these are digital first enterprises like everyone else now.
Yes,
It's
I
not,
think so. And it's just a market reality. I'm
yeah.
somewhat sympathetic to their plight, but we'll see what we can do.
That's good. That's what
And
I'm
what are
looking
you
for.
looking forward to in the next week,
I
Mike?
know. Oh, the CLE's coming up next week, and
Yeah.
I missed the craft beer experience this week. Um, over at Fair State, the Bar Association's group met there last night. I
Oh,
hoping
fun.
to get there, missed it. So
Ah,
maybe
yeah. Next time.
next time.
Yeah.
Karen, thanks so much for joining me again this morning.
Thank
We will see
you.
you next week, and
Yep.
you have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too.
Take care.
Yep. Take care.